When it comes to protecting your home, the first line of defense should always be physical barriers. In times past, people didn't rely on high-tech systems or electronic sensors. They relied on sturdy construction and natural deterrents that criminals simply didn't want to deal with. These layered barriers are designed to slow down, frustrate, or flat out stop anyone trying to gain entry. Think of them like speed bumps for burglars. The more obstacles you place between the street and your front door, the more likely the intruder is to move on to an easier target. Start with fencing. A tall, locked gate or fence with pointed or spiked tops adds a psychological and physical barrier that makes anyone second-guess climbing over. Even something simple like a wooden privacy fence or a chain-link fence with barbed wire can be highly effective. The goal here is not to create a prison, but to give the impression that your property isn't easy to access, and that effort alone can make you safer than your neighbors. Next, consider your landscaping. Thorny plants like rose bushes, bougainvillea, or hawthorn planted beneath windows make excellent natural deterrents. No one wants to crawl through a bunch of thorns just to get inside a house. It may sound primitive, but these tactics have worked for centuries because they don't malfunction and they don't require power. They just sit there, doing their job 24/7. Doors and windows are critical points of entry and should never be the weak link in your defenses. Reinforced doors, metal security screens, and deadbolt locks can be the difference between a quick break-in and a failed attempt. Window bars might seem old-fashioned, but they're extremely effective. Make sure all doors have solid frames, not hollow core. A strong door with a quality lock gives you time, and time is your greatest asset when someone is trying to break in. Security film on windows can slow down or even prevent glass from shattering. This is another passive defense that adds a layer of protection without relying on technology. Pair that with dowel rods or pin locks in sliding doors, and you've got yourself a solid barrier setup. Ultimately, the goal of layered physical barriers is not just to keep people out. It's to make them decide it's not worth the risk to try. When an intruder sees multiple obstacles between them and their goal, they move on. That's the power of old-school, physical home defense. Visibility and lighting have always played a crucial role in home defense, especially in old-school tactics where technology was limited or non-existent. Criminals thrive in darkness. They want cover, concealment, and the ability to move undetected. But when you flip that scenario and light up your property like a stage, everything changes. Suddenly, sneaking around becomes risky. Eyes are on them, real or imagined, and most criminals will abandon their plan when they realize they've lost the advantage of surprise. Start with motion-activated floodlights. This isn't about having your house lit like a sports arena 24/7. It's about smart placement. Entry points, walkways, garages, and backyard areas where someone might lurk or hide. When those lights snap on unexpectedly, they create an instant psychological effect. An intruder feels exposed. They wonder, did someone see me? Did a camera just turn on? Even if you don't have a high-tech surveillance system, that moment of doubt may be all it takes for them to retreat. In the daytime, visibility means maintaining clear sightlines. Avoid letting hedges, overgrown shrubs, or privacy fences block your view of entryways or windows. This is where a lot of modern homeowners go wrong. They value privacy so much that they unintentionally create hiding spots for intruders. Trim trees back, keep bushes low near windows, and make sure your yard isn't offering concealment. A clean, open yard puts criminals on edge because they have nowhere to hide if someone steps outside or a neighbor looks over. Porch lights and pathway lighting also play a subtle but effective role. Even soft lighting around the perimeter of your home helps establish the message that someone is present, aware, and watching. Consider installing solar-powered lights along walkways or garden beds. They don't cost much and they stay on without adding to your electric bill, even during grid-down situations. Old school security often relied on the community watching out for each other, and visibility helps that too. If your property is well lit and your yard is clear, neighbors can help keep an eye out, whether intentionally or simply by noticing something unusual in passing. Criminals often case homes before striking. If they see a well-lit, visible, maintained property, they're more likely to move on to one that looks neglected or hidden in shadow. In a collapse or grid-down world, lighting becomes even more valuable. Battery-powered lanterns, solar lights, and reflective materials can extend visibility without depending on the grid. When visibility increases, vulnerability decreases. That's old-school wisdom worth remembering. Sound has always been a powerful deterrent in home defense. Long before modern alarm systems and smart cameras, homeowners relied on noise to signal intrusion and alert both themselves and their neighbors. Criminals prefer stealth. They don't want to be heard, noticed, or remembered. That's why old-school sound-based tactics remain effective today, especially when power or technology fails. One of the simplest and most underrated tools is the humble dog. Even a small dog with a loud bark can serve as a frontline warning system. It doesn't need to be aggressive. It just needs to alert you when something is out of place. Criminals don't want to deal with a barking dog because it signals to the homeowner and potentially to surrounding neighbors that someone is on the property. In many cases, the bark alone is enough to make a criminal reconsider. Wind chimes are another old-school method that many people overlook. While they're typically considered decorative, they can be placed strategically near entry points, like back doors or ground-level windows, so that any tampering with those areas causes an unexpected sound. Criminals don't want to trigger unfamiliar noises that may draw attention. Even a small sound in a quiet area can shatter their sense of control and surprise. Gravel walkways serve a similar purpose. Unlike smooth concrete or grass, gravel makes noise underfoot. Anyone approaching your doors or windows will make their presence known whether they like it or not. It's an old tactic used for centuries around homes, barns, and even castles. You don't have to cover your whole yard, just place gravel in strategic choke points where someone would have to pass. You can also take a page from the rural playbook by installing metal or wooden gates with squeaky hinges. While modern sensibilities push for silence and smooth function, that telltale creak can work in your favor. When someone tries to sneak in, that familiar sound will alert anyone nearby. In fact, some homesteaders intentionally avoid oiling their gate hinges for this very reason. Another simple but effective sound-based trick is to use bells. A bell on a doorknob, window, or interior hallway can serve as a passive alert, especially during the night. When everything else is silent, the jingle of a small bell can be all it takes to wake you up or give you precious seconds to respond. Ultimately, old-school sound tactics are about reclaiming awareness through your senses. In a world where silence emboldens predators, the right sound at the right time can make all the difference. Lighting has long been a critical factor in home defense, especially when it comes to deterring criminals before they even approach. Long before motion, sensor lights, or smart home systems, our grandparents understood that darkness breeds danger and that even the most basic lighting strategy could make a criminal think twice. Today, you can take those time-tested tactics and apply them in practical, cost-effective ways. No electricity or internet required. One of the most effective deterrents is the illusion of occupancy. Criminals often case homes looking for patterns. When people leave, when lights go off, when a house sits dark for too long, Old school wisdom taught people to vary their lighting routine manually. Leaving a lamp on in a visible window, even during daytime hours, can send a clear message: someone is home and alert. Oil lamps and battery-powered lanterns also serve a dual purpose. Not only do they provide essential backup lighting during a power outage, but they can be positioned in strategic spots to give your home a lived-in appearance. Place one near a window at night, and anyone scouting the area will have a harder time telling whether you're asleep, awake, or waiting. With a double-barrel shotgun, criminals hate uncertainty. Exterior lighting is just as important. Before fancy floodlights existed, people relied on porch lights, yard lamps, and even candles in lanterns to brighten up entrances and discourage late-night lurkers. Installing basic solar lights along walkways, driveways, and fences is a modern twist on that principle. They charge during the day, require no wires, and light up automatically at night, making it harder for someone to approach undetected. Another powerful method is placing mirrors or reflective surfaces near light sources. This old trick increases the apparent brightness of a small flame or dim bulb, creating the illusion of more light and motion than is actually present. Criminals looking from a distance may interpret reflections as signs of movement, increasing their unease and hesitation. For even more old-school flair, consider how homes were once designed with light as a security feature. Front porches allowed people to monitor their surroundings. Strategically placing chairs, rocking benches, or even visible props in outdoor areas can give the impression of vigilance. It's not about tricking people, it's about sending a subtle signal. This house is being watched, and you're not welcome here. Light exposes, light warns, light deters. It doesn't have to be fancy or expensive to be effective. Sometimes all it takes is a flicker in the dark to tell the bad guys to keep moving. Dogs have always been one of the most effective and underrated home defense tools, long before the rise of alarm systems and surveillance cameras. In fact, the mere presence of a dog, even a small one, can deter intruders. Criminals are not looking for a challenge, they're looking for silence and ease. A barking dog is the exact opposite of that. It draws attention, creates noise, and makes the intruder second-guess every move. That alone makes dogs a priceless layer in any old-school home defense strategy. Not every dog needs to be a massive, aggressive breed to be effective. In many cases, smaller dogs with high-pitched, constant barking are more irritating and difficult for an intruder to ignore. Their job isn't necessarily to attack, but to alert. And when they bark at every unusual noise or movement, they're acting as a living motion detector, one you can't unplug or jam. Of course, for those who have the resources and space, larger breeds like German Shepherds, Rottweilers, or Belgian Malin will add an extra level of deterrence. These dogs don't just bark, they protect. Their presence alone is often enough to make would-be intruders skip your house entirely. But it's important to remember that owning such dogs comes with responsibilities, training, exercise, and proper care. These aren't just tools, they're family members and should be treated as such. Another old-school tactic involves using signs or audio cues to amplify the threat of dogs. Beware of dog. Signs are simple, cheap, and effective, even if you don't own a dog. The uncertainty they create can make a criminal reconsider. Similarly, keeping a dog bowl or a large leash visible in the yard can signal that there's a serious animal on guard. Even in tight spaces like apartments or urban homes, dogs remain an asset. They can alert you before you even hear a knock at the door. They sense tension, smell strangers, and react to unusual sounds. That kind of natural intuition is hard to replicate with machines. Unlike cameras that passively record events, dogs act in real time. They respond, they defend. Beyond their utility, dogs provide another benefit, psychological peace. Knowing you have a companion who will alert you to danger even at 3 a.m. brings a level of comfort no electronic device can offer. They create a presence in the home that feels alive, active, and protective. In the end, when society's safety nets fall away and you're left with only what's under your roof, a dog might be the loudest, fastest, and most loyal line of defense you've got. Fencing may seem like a basic part of home design, but in the context of old-school home defense, it's a powerful tool that can buy you time, deter intruders, and define your domain. Long before modern surveillance, physical barriers were the first line of defense for any property. The principle is simple: make it harder for someone to get to you, and they'll often give up before they try. The key to using fencing effectively is to choose the right type and layout. Chain link fences, while inexpensive and see-through, are easily climbed and don't offer much of a psychological barrier. On the other hand, solid wooden fences or tall metal ones with pointed tops send a very different message. They say, "This property is secure, getting in won't be easy, and you're being watched." One of the oldest and still effective tricks is to create layered barriers. Instead of one fence, use two. A perimeter fence followed by a shorter, more decorative inner fence closer to the house increases the time it takes an intruder to reach your home. That time is critical. It gives you the window you need to wake up, respond, or let your dog or alarm do its job. Fencing also creates a clear visual boundary. Many criminals won't target homes where it's obvious they're trespassing from the start. A solid fence removes ambiguity. There's no excuse for accidentally wandering onto your land. It's deliberate, and that alone is enough to discourage many would-be threats. Another benefit is the ability to control entry points. A good fence should have a strong, lockable gate. Avoid flimsy latches or decorative latches that look good but don't hold up to force. Reinforced steel locks or crossbars can make it significantly harder for someone to get through without drawing attention. Don't overlook natural fencing either. Thorny bushes like hawthorn or blackberry can be planted along fences to add a natural barrier that's painful and difficult to bypass. These types of additions are quiet defenders. They don't beep or flash lights, but they hurt, scratch, and slow down anyone trying to climb over. Finally, lighting plays a big role. Motion-activated lights placed along the fence line are a throwback tactic that still works today. Intruders hate being lit up unexpectedly. Pairing lights with a strong fence system means you don't just block them, you expose them. A well-designed fence system doesn't just keep people out, it sends a clear message: you're not an easy target. And in the world of home defense, that message might be the most powerful weapon you have.